Hello everyone and welcome to the Royal Blue podcast. I'm Ian Croll, joined by Gav Buckland. Gav?
Shouldn't laugh really, should we?
We should not laugh, but first of all, before we get into it, how are things? All good?
They're fine, yeah. I was out last night celebrating my wedding anniversary, so a little bit hungover.
Okay.
My hungover has not improved one jot with the news at 11 o'clock.
Okay, congratulations. How many years married is that?
32.
32?
Yeah.
Still going strong?
Yes, hopefully. Hopefully.
Just not today?
Not today, yeah, for a number of reasons, of which we're just about to talk about, would be my impression.
Absolutely. Well, our agenda has been absolutely thrown out of the window because we were obviously going to discuss a few things, but with the breaking news, I'm sure anyone who's on the stream now will have seen on social media that Everton's prospective takeover by the Friedkin Group has collapsed and the takeover is off. The group, led by the US billionaire and Roma owner Dan Friedkin, had entered into an exclusivity period with the Blues majority shareholder Farhad Moshiri earlier this year, but the takeover is now off. The Friedkin Group say that the £200 million Everton owe to 777 partners and ACAP was a massive stumbling block due to legal issues and risk. Gav, just your initial reaction to the news that broke within the last hour?
Well, it's dreadful news, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
For the short-term interests of the club, to be fair, over this, pressing period of, we'll talk about the transfer window and the stadium in a bit, obviously the cash that we thought would come in via the Friedkin Group on an ongoing basis as the owners, that's now disappeared. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, which we spoke about before we came on air, is in some respects this perhaps is not a shock if you've read some of the pieces over the last couple of weeks, and knowing our situation in Everton, where the money's come from. It's not a shock that it's taken this long to get to this point where we're saying, well, we're going to walk away.
Yeah.
We probably thought it would be done. The deal was going to be done quite quickly, given their reputation and their experience in the world of football, that it would be done pretty quickly and on our circumstances. But the fact it's gone on a bit longer than anticipated probably indicates that there were issues, and that's obviously the case, isn't it? Or one specific issue.
Yeah, one specific issue, again, if you're just joining us now, is that the Friedkin Group say that the £200 million Everton owe to 777 partners and ACAP was the big stumbling block due to legal issues and risk, which, it's just so frustrating considering now this is the fourth prospective buyer since Moshiri, isn't it?
Something like that, yeah. And the other thing is, the MSP investments about getting the shares. Was that 18 months? I can't remember when that was. A year or two back, that was blocked because of the rights and media funding issue, wasn't it? Their proposed semi-takeover, and so this is another body owned money to us that's become a stumbling block. So that the debt and the terms of that has been a major problem for Moshiri trying to sell the club, hasn't it? In terms of rights and media funding, and now 777. But in some respects, it's not a surprise. This is it when you look at it and what they've said. Was it so legal and what was the phrase they used?
Just says legal issues and risk.
Yeah. So the legal issues would be probably the terms of the loan, wouldn't it? Where
of the £200 million.
Yeah. When it was due, incest, all that type of thing.
But they were at the back of the queue as far as I was concerned.
Yeah. Well, that's what we thought. There was some stories, by the way, when ACAP sort of took over that actually they said it was secured, so that could be an issue. And the risk is, you would imagine, given ACAP's reputation, we've all seen the stories about lawsuits and where the money's come from and all that type of business, that's all out there. You would think that from the Friedkin Group as well, where's our money going?
Yeah.
When it goes to them, will it cause some sort of reputational damage? And that is obviously that's an issue for them as well. You get them maybe when all that's said and done. It's just thought these are the type of people that we want to be dealing with.
Well,
is it really worth our while? And maybe it is.
Do you think that is a big factor then, in that with everything that has gone on with 777 partners and ACAP over the past 12 months, like you said, lawsuits, is it just a case of not wanting to deal with these people?
It could be. We don't know yet. I mean, you just get the impression, from what they've said there, risk is a wide-ranging term. It can be financial risk, reputational risk, and and relationship risk, and you get from what they're saying there, it would be quite an obvious thing, perhaps, just to surmise that actually we don't really want to deal with it.
Yeah,
it's not really worth our while. It's obviously a far more complex loan, and the terms that perhaps we realised at the time. So I mean, more stuff will come out, I would imagine. We're only speculating from what was a couple of sentences at that stage, and from that statement. But you can probably see why they've walked away on those terms, can't you?
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to read the statement out, but before I do, as you can see, if you are watching on YouTube, we are live. So get your thoughts in, get your comments in, get your opinions in. Again, interaction, as we always say, is very much welcome. We've got nearly 300 people watching on the live stream, so there's already multiple comments coming in. So I'm probably not going to be able to get through them all, but at some point during the the podcast and the stream, if I see a good one, or I will come to it, I promise. I mean, what does this mean? I'll ask this first, Gavin, then I'll come on to the statement. Yeah. What does this mean then in terms of funding? There's obviously two scenarios. There's funding of the running of the actual club, and then there's funding for transfers as well. So in terms of funding for the actual club, are we in a bit of a sticky situation, do you think?
I would think not at this immediate time, because obviously some of the Premier League money kicks in. We're getting income off transfers. If the Narnagate deal goes through over the weekend, they've lent us, I think, what was it, £50 million for working capital to see us through the period, I would imagine, between them sort of opening discussions with Everton and when they thought they were going to be taking over. So I think in the short term we're okay. In terms of how it affects our transfer dealings, you would hope that our transfer dealings over the summer is based on just the money we've got at the moment. Yeah. It wasn't predicated on at some point that the Friedkin Group's going to give us further money. So you would think that that's all self-funding, the transfer deals in the summer. So I think it doesn't affect that. I would hope it doesn't. It's the beyond that period. Once you get into the start of the new season, and we said that a month or two back on the pod, is we can get over the summer. Because it'd be Premier League money get money off the transfer window. So that's not an issue. It's when we get into the season that the funding of the day-to-day business possibly becomes an issue. And so for the moment, I think we're okay. You would like to think we have got options. Whether and we are obliged to talk about this at some point, and we'll do later on, is whether there's players we thought that we might be keeping,
might now have to sell.
Yeah,
which obviously is a massive concern.
Yeah, but we'll talk about that later on.
Yeah, we'll talk about that as the podcast goes on. We've got plenty of time. Okay, then before we come on to other prospective buyers, and we've got points and valid points raised with regards to any other prospective buyers who's just going to face the same issues as Friedkin and stuff like that. So let's have a look at the statement then. So the statement says, quote, following a period of exclusivity discussions between Blue Heaven Holdings and the Friedkin Group over a potential sale of a majority stake in Everton have ended, and the Friedkin Group will not be progressing with a purchase of the club. Both Blue Heaven Holdings and the Friedkin Group entered discussions in good faith to explore whether a sale could be agreed. Those discussions have concluded. The parties agree it is in both their interest for Everton to explore alternative options. I mean, interesting line there to say that both parties have said, happily that it's in their best interest to part ways.
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
That's just PR, isn't it, really? And also as well, Everton want to prolong the you know, it's not Everton, it's Blue Holdings. Wouldn't want to prolong the matter when we want to bring in another buyer, potential buyer, as quickly as possible. And my understanding is I think the Friedkin Group have said that actually this has never really been as progressing as fast as what people thought. There's a lot to unpick with our finances, which we did say, didn't we, on the pod, that there might be some stuff under the bonnet in Everton's finances that actually, once you look underneath it, that actually you find problems that you don't really,
which is what's
you don't really see, and that's effectively what happened, isn't it? Over possibly the terms of the 777 deal and who you're dealing with, and that's obviously been proved correct. And the concern you've got, isn't it? And this is how this is resolved is open to question. Is any other prospective buyer with a good reputation, like the Friedkin Group, let's face it, they looked ideal, didn't they? Coming in, they're going to face the same issue, aren't they?
Yeah.
You know, and that's going to be a problem for whoever comes in afterwards, and possibly won't be going away in the short term. So this, you know, we felt that the 777 deal was good for Moshiri because they paid the bills that he should have been paying, but it's now come back to bite him, hasn't it?
This specific loan, isn't it?
Yeah, in a big way.
God knows the legal, you know, the legal issues surrounding that loan that the club agreed to.
Well, and it could be who's lent the money to us, you know, in terms of the finer detail of the loan,
where that money's come from,
and where the terms of it, all that type of stuff. You would imagine that they just didn't want. They had uncomfortable dealing with them, and concerns about when that money disappears into ACAP or whoever, where that money goes. You know, and that probably reading between the lines is what the issues are.
Yeah, I mean, the statement continues here. So the Friedkin Group will remain a lender to the club and is proud to have played a key role in enabling the new stadium to be built, which will help ensure a bright future for both Everton and the city of Liverpool. I mean, we've had a question about what happens to the MSP loan they paid off. Well,
it's now the Friedkin are now the new MSP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we haven't effectively got rid of a loan.
No, and I've heard that actually the terms of the loan is better than MSP. So that's the one sort of benefit, I suppose. That's an interesting phrase. What was it? Remain a lender to the club. Now that's an open-ended statement, that, isn't it? That doesn't necessarily mean that their lending to the club ends now.
If they want to continue.
And you know, I think there's a figure out there that maybe there's 50 or 60 million pounds remaining for the stadium that needs funding. You would imagine that, bear in mind they've got a vested interest in that being built, that if there's further money needed for the stadium, that they then provide that to protect themselves so that it's built. So that's what you would possibly think is one scenario, because that's the other concern, isn't it? The stadium. Is if there's still funding needed, and I think it's not impossible to see a position where, you know, where they lend us further money to finish it off.
Yeah,
because it's in their interest, isn't it?
Well, again, now it does seem like there's a bit of a black hole for the stadium, because it looked like if they were going to take over,
they'd fund it, and they can still fund it now because it's in their interest, isn't it? They've lent us £150 million or whatever, £200 million. It's in their interest to do it.
Any slight regrets, you think, from their behalf lending us the money?
If it's a business proposition, if they are getting interest on the loan, it's not really, I suppose. It's just you'd hope it. And what I've heard, it's better terms than the MSP. And the MSP was so awkward, wasn't it? Because there was like about several different lenders there, all with possibly different interest rates, all that type of thing. Difficult to unravel. That's like, you know, when you see them adverts, isn't it? Consolidate all your loans into one, and it's better for you. And this probably sounds better for us, doesn't it?
Okay, well, Blue Heaven Holdings, obviously people don't know, is like the vehicle that Moshiri is used to, you know, with 777. So the statement finishes off by saying, Blue Heaven Holdings maintains a positive relationship with the Friedkin Group and would like to thank them for the time and effort they have put into this process. When there is further news to share, it will be provided via the club's official communication channels. I mean, obviously, you know, that you read that and you just think of Moshiri, and like, he must be pulling his hair out. You must think that he must be pulling his hair out with everything that has gone wrong in the past and what has gone wrong today.
Yeah, he's probably got a few regrets. But what's that thing about positive relationship? What was that sentence there again?
Blue Heaven Holdings maintains a positive relationship with the Friedkin Group, and we'd just like to thank them for the time and effort they've put into this process.
So we've ended on good terms. Maintaining a good relationship means that's an ongoing relationship, doesn't it? Obviously, because they're now a lender. Because the lender, but at that point, what I was saying is you wouldn't rule out them lending us more money if the stadium needs finishing off.
Yeah. It's a disaster.
It depends about what the outcome is. If a group like the Friedkin Group comes in and is prepared to negotiate with 777 or ACAP, whatever it is now, possibly not, but it's uncertainty, isn't it? And I think, you know what the damaging thing for us is if you were a player looking at, I want to join Everton now, and you're looking at this uncertainty, would that sort of, if you've got two clubs,
sway you?
Would that mean that you've got Everton and another club, another club is stable, all that type of stuff, and look at Everton and thought, well, actually, will I get my wage paid in 3 months' time? You want to go with the other club, aren't you, really?
Yeah.
And I don't think it helps us in terms of the instability, in terms of trying to bring players in, to be fair. I mean, that's obviously, you know, on an individual basis, but it doesn't help if you're trying to sack players, this uncertainty, which has always been the case, hasn't it, I suppose.
In terms of the other buyers then, you know, I feel like nothing ever moves quick in these situations, but Moshiri's probably going to have to, you know, his position has been weakened once again, but he's going to have to move quick, and is he going to have to go back to you know, there was a whole host of
well, it weakens his position and how he values the club,
That's
doesn't
what
it?
I mean, yeah.
That doesn't help. And I think that the point is true, isn't it? Is other buyers may have the same attitude towards the ACAP debtors as the Friedkin Group, so that further damages Moshiri's position even more. And it now looks like that 200 million, whatever that was borrowed, could sink him, couldn't it? You know, that
could sink the club.
Well, it could sink him personally in terms of his ownership of the club and what he wants, the value of it. I mean, the club, you know, you would over the short term is you would think is stable. It's about going back to the table now and discussing with other potential owners. I mean, it was good. We said this at the time, didn't we? That not only was the Friedkin Group, you know, looked like on face value good choice, there was 2 or 3 other people involved that you think actually that they could make it work. And you would think that, well, you would pray that that's still the case. You know, if you really want it, you'd need to sit down with ACAP and take things forward with them. And you might have a different attitude to the Friedkin Group, mightn't you?
I mean, you know, there was obviously Bell and Downing, you know, that was a prospective buyer. There was a Saudi or a Qatari bid, wasn't there, or something like that. I mean, there was at least 3 or 4, but like, I just don't see how we get around this situation of, if they're saying basically that the reason for this Friedkin deal falling through is purely and solely down to the fact of this £200 million loan that Everton owed to 777 and ACAP. You know, you're going to have to get new prospective buyers on board that are going to be able, they're going to have to get on board with this loan, whether they pay it off straight away. But we haven't, we owe Friedkin money now. Yeah,
well, that's a new MSP, isn't it? So it's a different, and from what I believe, it's a better loan for Everton. But as you say, it's a loan, isn't it? And there may be a further loan beyond that. So, yeah, but we'll see. I mean, is this? I'm not sure from the ACAP position if they want their money, whoever ACAP are. I mean, no, that's a bit worry. Will they have to change their negotiations and what they want from the loan? Perhaps that may assist, because they'll the people involved with them will want the money off Everton, won't they? So that's possibly another potential thing that'll have to change in the future. But it's so disappointing, because they look like ideal people to get involved in the club. The Friedkins, didn't they? You know, for lots of different reasons, footballing and otherwise. The way they manage themselves corporately, the way they project themselves, and not sure it's a few bob as well, which helps. It's I suppose the other question is the Roma friendly still going to go ahead? I would imagine
it's going to be an awkward one.
Yeah, an awkward one. Yeah, absolutely. But if everything's on good, I think it's maintain the relationship. Yeah, it's an interesting one.
Yeah, I've got a tweet here from our Business of Football writer, Dave Parr, who
Yeah.
appears on the Royal Blue podcast every now and again. He's really good, some really good insights. So I'm just going to read this tweet out. It says, sources tell me that 777 financing... Sorry, I'll start again. Sources tell me 777 financing issued the sole reason for the deal collapsing. Won't be seeking a quick return after paying off MSP loan, and will work with whoever is next potential owner to find best solution for all parties. Risk deemed too great over 777 due to ongoing litigation.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I feel like the Friedkin Group now, I think you've already just touched upon it there, but now we're just seeing this as more of a business opportunity. Absolutely. Rather than a full-on takeover. But does this smack of vultures circling the club and just like trying to pick the carcass of what might come?
Not with them.
No,
they were just they've lent us the money just because they had to, because the terms of the MSP deal had to be paid off, didn't it? So they've not lent us the money just because they're going to screw us for interest. They lent us the money to pay off MSP, who needed to be paid off for them to become owners. So that's something that needed to happen. So they're not vultures. You get the impression that they've still got an interest in the club above and beyond the money lent to us, though, from that statement. Just read that again, because it was quite a lot to take in.
I've lost it now. Just bear with me. So
okay.
Dave Parl.
That was a live podding.
Dave, well, yeah, exactly. So Dave Parl, Business of Football writer.
Yeah.
I'll put it back. That was quite quick. So sources tell me 777 financing issued the sole reason for the deal collapsing. They won't be seeking a quick return after paying off MSP loan, and will work with whoever is next potential owner to find best solution for all parties. The risk deemed too great over 777 due to ongoing litigation. So is the litigation part, is that because they're being taken to court?
Yeah, it's all sorts of stuff there which has implications for anybody who's got a relationship with them, I would imagine, and money that you're owed. And I think it's where the money goes.
So it's not... So if that's the case, then it's nothing to do with what is in the terms of the loan.
Well, we don't know, do we? That could be another blocker.
It sounds to me, that they just didn't want to have a relationship, regardless of whether that was direct or indirect, with 777/ACAP.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can, things have moved on a little bit in that world, haven't they? With the 777 ACAP organisations since over the last couple of months. And from what we know now, and from what's happened since over the football clubs and all that type of stuff, is they sound like an awkward customer to deal with for a lot of reasons, don't they? And that's been reflected in what Dave's saying there.
So I think I'm right in saying this is the fourth takeover which has collapsed for Moshiri, obviously, in the club. Do you foresee a situation in which Moshiri kind of bins any potential sale off and just continues to run the club, fund the club himself? Because it's kind of looking like that's an option now.
Well, the problem with that, where's he going to get his money from?
Yeah,
and it's well known, isn't it? Well known that because of the implications following the invasion of Ukraine in 2022, that Moshiri's sources of funding, are possibly, well, you would think, are not there anymore, and that's why he's had to go elsewhere. That the Times are saying money won't be an option when I'm around are actually no longer the case, and haven't been for a couple of years. I think to be honest with you, that's probably somewhere down the line, a few months' time. I think at the moment is just get through these next couple of months, which leads us, doesn't it? And this is the other implication of this. And this goes back to what we were talking about with Everton, before the Friedkin Group came in or were linked with us. Is we said at the our plans of to sell players to just to bring in money to fund further transfers. Like selling Arna, that will fund a couple of transfers.
Yeah.
And that's why we were doing it, and to live within PSR. The one thing we didn't have to do, we felt was to sell players just for the cash, to bring the cash into the club. A bit like Anthony Gordon's sale in January 23, was obviously we just needed the £40 million cash out with the PSR, but that was the primary reason, I would say, for why we wanted that money. Now, following today's news, it may be a case that actually one or two players that we may have to sell between now and the end of August just to bring in cash to the club.
Just to pay
bridge
wages.
That gap. Yes.
And that's not even including paying off Bramley Moore.
Yeah, you would suggest that we get. I would have. I may be wrong. Yeah, I would suggest that the Friedkin Group may do that. Somebody else who's got a vested interest in Everton will lend that money to us. But it does bring the spectre of we may have to sell players just for the cash, which is when you're selling players is not ideal because clubs know that, and it's a bit like selling your house in Monopoly for less than the price on the board, isn't it? Because you just need the hard cash. People taking advantage of it. And that's the position we may be in between now and the end of the transfer window. So though two words, Jarrad Branthwaite, which we said, we will, and we'll talk about later. But that does that change this?
No, we will come on to that Branthwaite and stuff because the agenda with Branthwaite for us now has kind of changed because before this news broke, it was a bit more positive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now it's not. But do you think the club, as in Thelwell, who obviously is looking after the football side of things and the finances, transfers or whatever, do you think he would have taken this takeover into account with regards to buying and selling players? What I'm saying is, would he have been as gung ho as he needed to be before this takeover was finalised? Surely he's working on the basis that we're just continuing as we are even without the takeover.
But I think I said that at the start. I think the transfer window is based on whatever of where we are financially as we are at the moment. Forgetting about any future takeover and stuff. Like a new owner coming in say August, September. I think the dealings and the amounts involved and the deals put together is quite clearly on the basis of it's all self-funding for that phrase. Yep. I don't think it's been going. Well, I mean you've seen that, haven't you? We the lad from Hull, we refused to go on, pay the extra couple of million. So I like to think, I think be pretty sure that the transfer activity is just based on Everton Football Club finances where they are now and the cash that they've got now, not on the basis of let's spend a load of money now because we're getting it in 2 months' time or whatever. So I think that's okay. It's the issue for me, as I always said, is when we get to the new season starts, and you've the working capital from Friedkin Group has been exhausted, and we've had to use the Premier League money to pay off debt. I mean, because remember we got debts to other clubs, haven't we, for other players? Yeah. Is when that finishes, is who's the funding of the club from that period onwards. When once September, October, that's the issue. You would hope that something happens between now and then. That means that that's not the case, and that's the challenge for me. Is what's going to happen then? You would hope, as I say, that somebody else comes in and that goes away. But I think for the moment we're all right. I don't think there's any issues.
Yeah,
I'm not sure whether it will change our transfer activity at all.
I don't think it will.
No, it may change the players' attitude towards us and the agents' attitude towards us. And once this, it may change who we players that we thought would stay because we don't need the cash to run the business. That may change again now, and that's the other concern from the playing side. Because there's always a possibility Branthwaite would. I'm just picking Branthwaite here. Yeah, would need to be sold just because the club needed the cash. Yeah. And that appeared to go away, but now actually that might come back into play.
Okay, well we'll come on to Branthwaite now, but I'll just read out a tweet from Joe Thomas, the Echo's EFC correspondent. He's written the piece, which if you haven't read, you can go to the Liverpool Echo website to read that. But he says he understands concerns over the £200 million lent to Everton by 777, with the main issues in the takeover collapsing. Essentially, there were too many questions that were too difficult to get answers to for the Friedkin Group to be comfortable with. So we obviously know the first part of that, we know that, but I felt like that's a little bit different. Essentially, there were too many questions that were too difficult to get answers to. for the Friedkin Group to be comfortable with.
Yeah.
I mean, what answers and where did they want to get answers from? Is that from Everton? Is that from 777?
I would imagine from 777. Imagine, you know.
So again, 777 just playing.
Who's funding you? What happens to this money when it goes into your group?
Yeah.
That type of thing. You know, who are we dealing with? Are you the people that we are that should be dealing with? You know what?
And that's nothing new, is it? That's nothing new with them because they wouldn't give the Premier League the answers that the Premier League asked them.
Yeah, and well, they said they did, didn't they? So it's just it's reputable. But that's what I think. That's when they're talking about risk. That thing, I think that's financial risk, and I think it's reputational risk.
Yeah.
Of interacting with an organisation that, you know, whose reputation has been put through the mixer over the last few months, and I think that's the issue here, isn't it? If you match what they're not getting answers, who they're dealing with, and match that to the risk statement, that would be my guess.
Okay, Colin Knowles said, "Big Gav, so often the voice of reason."
Oh, thank you. Yeah. But I think there's only one way of looking at this, isn't it? Really, you know,
try to be positive.
How can you be positive from this? Well, it's brought the issue out into the open, hasn't it? We now know what we're dealing with. You know, that thing about like the risk was before Friedkin took over, that actually there'd be stuff under the bonnet we don't know about that might be a concern for us. Well, we now know that issue, don't we? So we know what we're dealing with in terms of the issues are in the sale of the club. I think that's a positive or not, but the picture's a lot more clear for us as fans, isn't it?
Yeah,
I think that's the only thing. I'm thinking also as well that the fact the Friedkin Group's loan is probably a better deal for the club than the MSP one. That's it. Yeah.
Just looking through some of the comments here. So Jason Delacour says, "So are 777 and ACAP messing with the sale of the club? Is this a case of revenge?"
Well, no, because they want their money, don't they?
Well,
why wouldn't you? You know, if you got £200 million owned to you, don't mess with the people you deal with, in theory, because you want your money back, don't you? You know,
is it not? Steve Smith says, could the Friedkin Group not buy out the loan? Is that not a bit of a, you know, a kick in the teeth, or is that too much to ask?
Why would they do that? Yeah, why would they do that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, they're gonna have to, if whoever.
Well, that's what they were trying. They were trying to pay him off, weren't they?
But it was no secret, was it, that we owed 200 million to 777, and then they obviously went into an exclusivity.
But it goes back to what I was saying. It's the people you're dealing with, and what they're saying is actually, you know, the legalities.
But if you
and stuff come into place,
you wouldn't have to deal with them if you just bought out. If you just paid the 200 million.
Well, that's what they're probably trying to do, aren't they? You would think.
Who?
The Friedkin Group, and what they're concerned about is where does that £200 million go, and what's our reputation?
I mean, I get it.
I'm just speculating.
No,
here,
we're all speculating.
We're only trying to pull together some conclusions from like what is understandably a number of vague, general comments. But
we're just coming to this now as everyone else is, and we're trying to react and get your reaction and stuff like that. I do think it's not a kick in the teeth. I'm not saying that because, you know, Friedkin, you know, doesn't owe us anything at all, but he's entered into this period of exclusivity.
Yeah.
He's gone all this way. He's already paid off a loan, you know, invested into the stadium. He's given money for the stadium and stuff like that, obviously, with the loan. I just think if you've gone all that way, it's like, well, why not just pay off the 200 million that 777?
That's what they might be trying to do, for all we know. I mean, or in a position where actually, if you were paying her off, I don't know, gradually, whatever, you know, understands where the legalities behind all that, but they obviously don't. Just from what they're saying is whatever way we want to do with ACAP is we're not getting the right answers or possibly dealing with the right people.
I mean, it must be an absolute nightmare. You're obviously having to deal with Moshiri, and agreements has been made. Then you go into due diligence, but that doesn't mean that you're not speaking to Everton. You're obviously going through Everton's books, but then you're obviously having to speak to external
rights and media funding have proved difficult people to deal with, haven't they? In the past, though possibly a bit easier this time. Is that, and that's it, isn't it? You know, it is selling a business is a difficult proposition at the best of times, even if you've got no issues. It's an enormously complicated process,
especially a business that's hundreds of millions of pounds in debt.
Well, exactly, and it's got to finish off a stadium. And I've been into pounds that are 100 million off several different owners with several different lenders with several different agendas, isn't it? I mean, we've only spoken about like trying to sell a player. for 15 million quid is an enormously complicated process, isn't it? In terms of meeting their terms for wages, length of contract, bonuses, all that type of stuff. That's you're selling a player, selling a small business these days. Selling a club like Everton is enormously complicated. I'd say with all the other add-ons that you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, just going back to other buyers, I just feel without you're obviously again you are the voice of reason, Gav. I'm quite more cynical. I just think other buyers are going to have the same issue with regards to this.
Absolutely.
They're going to have to. If Friedkin is happy to be a part of the club in some aspect, he's already stated there in his statement that he doesn't need his loan paying back straight away. I mean, 777, again, we've already stated this, we're at the back of the queue with regards to loans being paid back.
That's what we think. The way stories to say that actually their view was that actually it was a secured loan. I did hear something when ACAP sort of took over that I did hear whether that's right or not. It's probably a very woolly agreement, isn't it? And maybe that's one of the issues, possibly.
But other buyers, either way, they're going to have to get in bed with 777. So they're either going to have to, take over the club and just pay back the loan as and when, or obviously over the payment plan. 200 million.
Yeah. So it's not bad a hi-fi, that is it? On the monthly, is it?
Those are £100 million payment plans.
Yeah.
Or they're just going to have to stump up the £200 million straight away. But then
I'm not sure the legalities of that either.
Other lenders will be, I'm sure, who would expect to be in the front of the queue will be like, well, where's our money?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's, for me, I just think this is a nightmare situation, both on and off the pitch when it comes to the running of the club, whether it comes to the finances of the club, as well as transfers as well.
Well, I think in the short term, okay. I think I'll reaffirm that. It's the off the pitch stuff that's impacting the on the pitch stuff, isn't it? That's what we've got to be. That's the concern, isn't it? That's the more pressing concern, I think, and also the running of the club from the early autumn, I would imagine. That's when the cash flow position may change. So yeah, but we just got to hope, haven't we, that things are sorted, that there's other people involved who are legitimate, and we think that there are, and that they can come to the table and be a little bit more, maybe understanding of ACAP's position than the Friedkin Group, and just see where that takes us. That's the only thing we can say at this stage, can't we?
Okay, well, when we woke up this morning, Gav, you would have put good odds on Jarrad Branthwaite staying at the club. Well, I would have anyway. Certainly since Manchester United had, made a £52 million purchase of Lille defender Lenny Yoro.
Yeah.
Our agenda's changed slightly, maybe again not as positive as what we thought.
No,
but where does it leave everything now?
We're not saying any players need to be sold by the way for cash.
No.
I'm just saying that the risk of that, which we thought had disappeared, is now back on the agenda.
Yeah.
Not saying that, God, I'll tell you what, to make the ends meet, we've got to sell Branthwaite.
But even then, we don't know that yet.
We don't know that. Just make that clear. We're not saying we're going to have to sell players. We're saying that we thought that risk had disappeared because of the Friedkin Group's interest.
Yeah.
That risk may now be back on the table. But we don't know that. And we're not saying that that's the case. It's a possibility. We don't know how much of a possibility, but it's there, and we'll just have to wait and see how that plays out, and just get over the next couple of months, and hopefully things will resolve themselves in the autumn. But it is this thing is if it's proved difficult ACAP, then it may prove difficult for another. Prove difficulty dealing with ACAP. That might be the case for any future prospective owner, unless somebody says that, as you just said, comes on a bit more gung-ho, and forget about it, we'll forget about you. Yeah. We haven't got as many reservations of dealing with the Friedkin Group. So but then that damages Moshiri's position, because that weakens his position, doesn't it? Really, this or less. That's the take from this, and what he wants from the club.
Yeah, and I just feel like we weren't getting the answers from 777 with regards to anything really, and obviously Friedkin is, wasn't willing to progress with the deal. I mean,
the positive thing from this is what we do know is, thank God they never took us over.
Yeah,
because that would be, we'd be in a far worse position than what we are now. So we'll just have to wait and see, and take every whatever the financial equivalence of taking every game as it comes is we just have to do that at the moment and just see what the fallout of this is. And there'll be more stories about this that'll come out over the next few days.
Yeah.
Hopefully then we might have a bit more of a clear and more positive picture.
I mean, it's just a shame, isn't it? Because, like, as I just mentioned, then, you know, Branthwaite gave an interview to the club. He broke his silence. He just seemed to be, you know, quite happy just staying on that side of things. And with United, you know, buying Lenny Yoro, it did seem like it was just that saga. It just seemed like it was over. But now, because of everything, we're not saying this is definitely the case, but it feels like it might come back out again.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Or, you know, other clubs may come to the table with similarly low offers because, you know, you can get them possibly on the cheap. I don't know. That's speculation, but that's the one possible fallout from all of this. But we'll only find that out in the next few days. By the way, the Branthwaite interview, when did that come out? Was it yesterday?
Yes.
So the club would have known about all this yesterday, wouldn't he? So, you know, I don't think this won't be bombshell news for Blue Holdings, will it?
What, right now, do you think this has been coming?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, you don't just wake up of a Friday morning and just say the deal's off. You know, the mood music is there for a number of weeks, and from what we understand is that Friedkin Group have always said this is probably a little bit more difficult process than what people are making it out to be. It's not straightforward.
Yeah, absolutely. Where do we go then, Gav? What does Moshiri have to do now? Then is he on the blower to the other buyers? You know,
possibly.
Obviously, who did we have? We had Bell and Downing. We had. Is it the Crystal Palace guy, Tex?
Yeah.
Tex
there was also that consortium of based in London, wasn't it? With the fellow lived in London.
Oh yeah, and there was a Saudi royal family member apparently.
Yeah. Does
he get back on the blower to them and just say, you know, let's renegotiate?
Yeah,
because he's already turned them down anyway.
I think. Don't you think Moshiri's first point of contact is to speak to an ACAP representative and say, listen, what's going on here?
Yeah.
You know, you need to, you know, it's a bit like what the Friedkin Group has had there in their statements, isn't it? You know, we need to get a resolution that's beneficial for all parties, and that includes people loaning us money. So you would think that there was some dialogue there between Moshiri and ACAP, possibly. And then you would think that somebody else hopefully will come and express an interest. But it would appear that both Moshiri's and ACAP's position need to change, doesn't it really? But what's legally, you can't change the legal stuff though, can you?
Well, there's never going to be a resolution, like you say there, unless 777 or ACAP change their stance or provide the necessary information.
That reading from what Dave was saying, the goalposts need to shift a little bit, don't they? And we just thought we were going to be naming our team for the first game of the season.
Yeah. Well, we can still do that if you want.
Based on our transfer plans and stuff, probably not, because this is. I'm shocked, but the more I think about it now, it was such an obvious problem, wasn't it? The ACAP loan was such an obvious problem.
Yeah, well, there was I can't remember the source. I think it was iNews, to be honest, but there was an article earlier in the week which I read, and there wasn't any hint of, you know, Takeover collapsing. It was quite a positive article, but it did say that it's still a long way off. And obviously, it's easier to say it now because it's happened. But I did think, we were talking about it before we went on air. I did think this is taking a bit too long for me. Yeah. And you know, as things go, you know, it is literally a bombshell.
Well, you saw, you know, the clue that I suppose that it was. But the could be positive thing is announcing the friendly against Roma, wasn't it? Yeah, friendly against Roma. We think, things are on the way. This is all going to be sorted.
Oh yeah, well, it looked
the ownership could all be sorted by the time we play Roma. It's the Friedkin derby. You know, this is a good sign. Yeah, but actually,
no more.
It was possibly just a convenient friendly for both teams.
Absolutely. Well, you know, what are we on now? We've been speaking for
any more questions there?
50 minutes. There's loads of comments. Absolutely loads of comments. I mean, go on. So someone said text are ready yet. I mean, out of the other buyers, Gav, in your opinion, who was the next in line that you thought of? These look like.
I can't remember the details. The consortium based in London, wasn't it? That was okay. They didn't have football, football background.
Yeah.
Textor was obviously the problem with him. He's got to sell his holding in Crystal Palace, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And there's also some reputational stuff about him in Brazil, wasn't it? That came up. So the Friedkin Group were ideal, weren't they? No, that's the sad bit.
Yeah. I'll read through some of the comments then. So we've already said this, but someone said Everton are in crisis and face administration. I mean, we've already said that's far from the truth. The friendly against Roma will have a weird feel to it now.
That's a fair point. As you say, could be interesting boardroom discussions there, couldn't it? But if everybody's on good terms, they need to maintain a good relationship, don't they?
Yeah, everything happens for a reason. You can only go into administration if the HMRC claim for non-tax payments.
I've not heard about that.
Moshiri has absolutely killed us. Another one. The misery goes on.
I think Moshiri's role in all of this needs wider scrutiny, doesn't it? I think that's a fair point. His decision making over the last several years has been very, very selfish, I would imagine. And it's also now completely backfired on him, hasn't it? Really.
Do you have any sympathy for him with regards to this deal, or again, are you completely
I
agree?
I have sympathy in some respects that circumstances have conspired against him across a couple of issues. But then that's the risk you take. If your wealth is in certain parts of the world, that's a risk you take, isn't it? A bit unstable. At some point that might catch up with you, and it has. So I do have some sympathy with him a little bit. And I do remember that he's put, 700 million of his own money into the stadium.
Yeah. Another comment, sorry, just when you think there is light at the end of the tunnel, a high-speed train hits you head on.
I think that's a probably fair statement, isn't it?
Another one, the Friedkin Group purchased Roma that were heavily in debt. They avoid Everton, ? Questions must be asked, really, how bad Everton's situation is.
Well, we know how bad it's not. We know what debts the Everton have got. What we didn't really know was the terms of those debts and the people involved, and it's now clear, and it's certainly involved in the ACAP, that actually it's a little bit more toxic, shall we say, than what we thought.
Yeah. John Harris says, gone to bed with the devil. The books must be terrible. Nobody will want us.
I'm not sure about that, because they said, the Friedkin Group said, didn't it, that the only issue was the 777 loan, wasn't it? That was the only issue. They didn't say anything else.
Yeah, and then, again, if you're only just joining us now, go back to listen to this podcast, which is obviously on YouTube, but the audio side will be out on Apple and Spotify later this afternoon. But it just because of one, I know it's not a minor detail. It's obviously not a minor detail. The more I think about it now, I just think like they could pay this debt off to 777. But I know there's so much.
I just don't.
Going on.
We don't know the legal legal stuff.
It's just the fact that they seem happy to stay involved in the club.
Well, because you've got 200 million quid invested in us, haven't you? You're gonna want to be happy. You want the business to survive, don't you? You don't need 200 million quid disappearing. That's why I said there wouldn't be a rule out them lending more money if it means finishing off the stadium.
Gavin Cunningham says only the Middle East can save us now.
That's not ideal, is it? We don't know yet. We don't know about other people out there, do we?
Another comment, letting 777 anywhere near this club has ruined any potential sales, in my opinion. Gone to bed with the devil.
In the short term, yeah. I mean, you know what? I think if it were, and this is like clutching at the shortest of straws. The other thing we know now is we've now got any other prospective buyer has now got the total idea of what's involved at Everton, which they didn't a few months ago. So basically, the Friedkin Group have done the dirty work, haven't they? They've gone under the bonnet. They've seen what's wrong with the club and all that type of stuff, and they're saying that the only issue they've got is the ACAP loan, and so other prospective buyers now know all the issues involved in buying Everton. So that might bring other people out, so that they're not going into the unknown as what they were doing a couple of months ago. And I'm clutching at the very shortest of straws with that. It's like know your enemy, isn't it? I suppose.
Surely though, Friedkin must have known. We all knew that how much money we owe to 777.
Yeah, but it's the terms and the people that you're dealing with, and we know not a lot more about ACAP now than what we did 2 or 3 months ago. That's the thing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, there's going to be obviously a lot more to come out of this.
It'd be interesting to see the fallout and the detail of putting some details around that statement, around risk, around what the conversations were, the difficulties of getting answers, all that type of thing. It'd be there'll be a lot more, I would imagine, that's going to come out over the next couple of days.
And we'll just finish off then saying this is obviously news is broken on a day that Everton have their first pre-season friendly of the campaign against Sligo Rovers, which is a 4 p.m. kickoff. I mean, football is back, I suppose, if you want to say that.
Did it ever go away?
It didn't, obviously, with the Euros, but proper football, back with the Euros.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's good. Dice's post-match, if he's doing a post-match for a friendly, might be interesting, mightn't it?
Yeah.
Joe will be getting all the inside.
Yeah, Joe Thomas is in Ireland. He will be there in Sligo. Chris Beasley, I think, has probably just come into the office now. He's going to be covering the game as well. So plenty of coverage on the Liverpool Echo website.
Just be thankful to have started the pod at 10:30. Imagine getting that halfway through.
Yeah, that would have
discussing who should play centre mid for us on the first day of the season.
Well, that would have been a nightmare. I mean, it's been a nightmare anyway, to be fair. But one thing that I did have on the agenda, which I'll just ask you very quickly to finish off, the new kit. Thoughts on the design and price?
I'm the last person to discuss kits. I've not had an Everton kit since 1971, so last person to talk about the aesthetics.
Do you like it? It's a good design?
Yeah, kit's a kit for me.
What about the price though? Quite
well, this we spoke about this on the pod the other week, didn't we? With the flattening of TV money and contracts that Everton, like a lot of clubs, get the bulk of their money who are outside the top 6, because they flatlined and will stay flatlined for the future. They now got to generate additional revenue from elsewhere. That includes ticket prices and kits and so on and so forth. The only thing I'd say is people overstate the amount of money the clubs get from kits as well. Yeah. It's not as much as what people think. Once the supplier takes their cut stuff. I mean, it's like, isn't it? When people say, "Oh, sell a load of Tim Howard shirts in America," well, A, you've got to find the people to sell them to. B, once you've taken the cost of the kit, the import duties, all that type of stuff, you're left with nothing as a commercial deal. So that's just not worthwhile. And that's the only thing I say. People overstate the amount that all clubs get from kit deals, to be honest, in terms of selling the merchandising of them. And we're a bit that deal, aren't we? With kit pack, isn't it, as well, where we just get a fixed amount every year, don't we?
Yeah. Just thought it'd be interesting, because we've talked about the funding of the club in the short term. Alan Myers tweeted, my understanding is that the club is well funded in the short term. Obviously, the search will now recommence to find long-term funding solution, which effectively is a new buyer for the club.
Yeah, absolutely. And Alan's got great insight. So you've got to take Alan's word for it there. But we've always known that. I think they said that, didn't he, a couple of months ago, that the short-term funding's okay. It's the problem, as I say, beyond that. In the medium and long term, that's the issue.
Okay, well, we will finish off. Obviously, if you are just joining us, I'm sure you have seen the breaking news this morning with regards to Everton's takeover. Everton's prospective takeover by the Friedkin Group has collapsed, and the takeover is off. The group, led by the US billionaire and Roma owner Dan Friedkin, had entered into an exclusivity agreement with Farhad Moshiri earlier in the summer, but the Friedkin Group say that £200 million Everton owed to 777, and ACAP was a stumbling block due to legal issues and risk, which, that statement, as we have just discussed for the past hour, opens up a can of worms, but I'm sure we will find out more as the afternoon goes on, as the day goes on, Gav.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens over the weekends with regards to that. Because obviously, I think we'd imagine there's a hell of a lot of phone calls going on at this moment in time.
Moshiri on his yacht, something like that, probably on the phone, trying to speak to a lot of people.
I would imagine.
ACAP maybe first off, like you said.
Possibly.
Right, okay then. Just a reminder, Joe Thomas and Chris Beasley will be providing the latest coverage from the Sligo Rovers friendly, which kick-off is at 4 p.m, so you can check all that out on the Liverpool Echo website. Please remember to give us a like and subscribe to the Royal Blue YouTube channel. This podcast will be live on Apple Pods and Spotify, the audio version. We are on Facebook as well, so Everton FC, Liverpool Echo, give us a search. I've been Ian Croll, joined by Gav Buckland, and this has been the Royal Blue Podcast.